Okay. So, my name is Hayley. I'm a certified life coach and I am a developing medium as well. And my idea for these Sunday meetings started actually, Alyssa and I used to attend a Sunday meeting back on Vancouver Island, and it was an in-person meeting where we would just go and talk about our week and things we were struggling with. And there was an intuitive there who would kind of chime in, and so the topic always changed. They didn't have anything like a special guest, but it was just something I wanted to do to kind of help build community. And the beauty of Zoom is you can, be in Saskatchewan and have a friend on Vancouver Island, and you can, interview kind of people from all over the place. So I wanted to start these over Zoom before I did anything in person. And so far they've been going really well. I've really enjoyed, I think people have enjoyed showing up, and I've really enjoyed kind of the conversations that we've been having. And again, this is a super safe space. I want everyone to feel comfortable. If there's anything you're not comfortable with, you can message me in the chat directly. And I just want to kind of stress confidentiality. What's shared here stays here unless we decide to do with the recording to release it, but we'll decide that at the end, how everyone's feeling. And so that's a little bit about myself. I've been doing this work for just under a year. I did a couple courses with Leanne, who's in the group.
Yeah.
So, and really thoroughly enjoyed those. And so I have a practice out of my home. Alyssa's been kind of in this space for a lot longer. And I've definitely learned a lot from her. And she's kind of seen me come into my own the last couple of years. Alyssa was that friend I used to call for absolutely everything. I couldn't make one decision but she's very intuitive herself. And I'm really excited to have her, when I asked her to have her agree, because she's very knowledgeable on the health spectrum. And that's just something that I'm not too familiar with myself. So Alyssa and I have been friends since high school, so coming up almost 20 years. It's scary. We've probably been friends for 20 years. We met like middle up high school, but yeah, so it's been really neat. We've had quite a fun journey. We once at 18 spent 10 days sleeping in the back of my Chevy Cavalier driving through California, and we went all over to the desert and to the north, and we had quite the adventure together. And we've gone to Hawaii together, and we meet up she lives in Vancouver Island now, but we do try to meet in the middle every so often. So that's
very nice
about myself. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's great.
And I'll let you take the floor, Alyssa, and then we're going to open once Alyssa kind of does her introduction, we'll open the floor to questions. So you can either write those in the chat. You can send them directly to Alyssa or myself if you want them to be a little more private or anonymous, or feel free to just shout them out. And also feel free to chime in too if you have something for somebody else in the group. It's definitely kind of an open, it's like a support group. Treat it as like a little support group if we were all sitting in a circle. So all right, Alyssa.
Take it away. Okay. So my name is Alyssa. It's really nice to meet all you guys. Thanks for coming tonight. And I kind of have an eclectic background. I actually started apprenticing under a medium and doing mediumship when I was 20. And then I kind of segued into more body work and doing acupressure and intuitive body work. And then I went back to school and decided to get certified in nutrition and health coaching, and then also kind of started digging a little bit more into quantum work and intuitive quantum work and medical intuitive work. So I kind of like to blend the energetic realm and the energetic space with more of the holistic and alternative medicine space. As someone who has had lifelong chronic illness and also dealt with a lot of mental health imbalances, it's been mostly, I would say, a journey of self-learning, but I think the beauty through that is I've been able to acquire a lot of knowledge and practical skills and tools that not only can I apply to myself, but I've been able to support and help others learn too, so they can figure out what areas where they need to rebalance for themselves. Because I think, especially in this day and age, it doesn't matter who you are, almost everyone is affected either directly or indirectly by some form of illness, most of it chronic, some of it acute. But yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I also work in the intuitive space doing medical intuitive work that's trauma informed, and also working with applied kinesiology for identifying food intolerances or sensitivities to anything in the environment. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit all over the map, but it blends together nicely and kind of gives me a foot in the door in both spaces, which I enjoy, because I do find a lot of practitioners, although it's fantastic, fantastic to focus on one specific area, sometimes then I find there's blind spots. So I try to remain open-minded and very much come from a holistic whole spectrum approach. So yeah. I can give a little bit of information to kind of start it off if you guys want. And then if you get inspired with a question, you're more than welcome to stick your hand up or type in the chat to ask. But if I'll ask first, does anyone have any questions off the bat? Or do you want me to kind of get a little bit more into any specific information? No? Hayley, do you? I
I
know.
was gonna say, can you go a little bit into what quantum work is? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if other people, yeah, if you had a different idea of how to start it off.
No, yeah, that's a great place to start. So quantum work specifically, what I'm doing is I'm tapping into the quantum field to access bits of data and information that apply specifically to your coding and your data that is correlated with your quantum field. And so what I'm able to do through that is I'm able to identify any type of root imbalances that are occurring in any one of your 7 bodies. And then I do energetic work through the quantum field still to help to rebalance. And it's sort of, I guess the best analogy for it is if you viewed yourself like a computer, it's like uploading a new software program into your computer to get rid of bugs and to upgrade the system and the hardware. It's kind of like a system upgrade. So that's essentially what I'm doing with the quantum work. And I love how diverse it is because I can apply it to karma. I can apply it to your money blueprint. I can apply it to biotoxins to see if you're dealing with, biotoxin illness or with a specific imbalance, like with oxygenation and hydration. Like it really is such a diverse spectrum of things that I can tune into and identify what's happening. So that's probably why I lean into it the most, more than any other method, and it can be done remotely. So all I need is, the person's permission, and then I'm able to tune in, and I work through cards as the medium, as the vessel. And so I have multiple different decks of cards, and they're all categorized into a specific area. So one is on the physical body, and then one is for the emotional, mental and psychological bodies, and then the spiritual, karmic, psychic bodies. And then from there, I can fine tune for like self-awareness and release, for doing like shadow and karma work. So yeah.
Awesome. I'll just say, like, I think you were living in Mexico at the time. You did a reading. Alyssa did a reading for me a couple of years ago, and she was talking about like my oral health, and she's like, really pay attention, like start doing this, start doing this. I think you recommended like tongue scraping and oil pulling, and I've always kind of tongue scraped, but yeah, I actually just had dental surgery this week, and I got some pretty upsetting news from the dentist a couple months ago, and I called Alyssa crying. I should have listened to you. So she knew her stuff when we were working together. It was pretty crazy. So, and very neat how you can kind of pinpoint things in the body. So yeah, if anyone has any, I guess if you wanted to, if no one has any questions, if you wanted to talk about,
I don't know. Okay, I thought you were gonna say
You were
something.
starting. Oh, sorry. Did you have your hand up, Maria?
Sure. Just, I think the advertisement just mentioned autoimmune disease. If you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything specific with autoimmune, just because it is a large umbrella? Like, is it for
It
you
is.
specifically that you want?
No, it's my son. He has alopecia.
He
Yeah,
has alopecia. Okay.
yeah,
So that's great. That gives me a really good starting point. So thank you for sharing that. So with autoimmune, it's a really fascinating topic because we're really hyper focusing on the physical body. And one of the most, sort of aha moments that I've had in my lifelong journey with autoimmune has been discovering the roots and origins of autoimmune and how it manifests in the first place. And while there is very much a physical component to that, I really started digging into the research around ACEs, which is your adverse childhood experiences. This is a really good thing to look up. And so ACEs was originated from some studies that were done in the 90s, and they were able to determine based on the number of adverse experiences a child had that we could classify as variations of trauma, increase their likelihood of developing a chronic illness and very likely an autoimmune condition exponentially. So the higher you scored on the ACEs test, the higher the likelihood of you developing a chronic illness, autoimmune condition in adulthood. And so I had a significant amount of childhood trauma, a lot of stress, a lot of nervous system dysregulation and changes in brain chemistry from abuse. And so I was able to really go back and see very clearly where things started to manifest and why. The other thing that's very prevalent with autoimmune is toxins and toxin load. So a lot of times individuals with autoimmune tend to have genetic abnormalities, genetic mutations that predisposition them to not be able to expel toxins properly the way someone with a healthy immune system can. This leads to them accumulating toxins in the body that aren't able to be expelled, and it tends to start to degrade the immune function and the organs and sort of has like a snowball effect. And sometimes, we really think about trauma as like these major traumas, and we think about things that are seemingly very significant, like sexual abuse or physical abuse or abandonment. When in reality, when we're looking at things like complex PTSD, it can be very subtle things. And it isn't necessarily what the trauma was, it's how the body responded to the trauma. And everyone responds to trauma so differently. And so it can be something like getting bullied in school, or if your family moved homes a lot and the kid didn't feel, super stable. And, oftentimes it's not that the parents did anything wrong and it was completely outside of the parents' control, but there's just little things that compound over time and it creates a lot of stress on the system. And that's when we start to see these things manifest. So stress is a huge one. And then when you're looking at the nervous system component of the stress, like I mentioned, that it's not necessarily what the trauma was, it was how it was received by the person individually. And we all have different tolerances on our nervous system. And some people are just more sensitive than others. So depending on, what the state of their nervous system was, even when they came in, like even if they had a stressful birth, like
yeah,
sometimes some births are extremely stressful. And, although the baby may not be at a point where it's, you know, cognitively able to understand what's happening, the body is still storing that, manifesting that in the cellular memory, and it's still causing a stress response. So it's really interesting to see where these kind of little strands start in early childhood that can cause the development. And so I find it very helpful to kind of dial it back and sort of see what the causes may have been. And it's often not one, it's usually an accumulation of multiple things. We call it the perfect storm. So
yeah,
it's usually like a combination of stress and toxins. And then there's usually one thing that kind of pushes you over the edge. So your body might be like in a place where it's coping through childhood and adolescence. And then maybe you get in a car accident, or maybe a family member dies or something happens, like an event, and then boom, it starts to physically manifest. So when we look at managing autoimmune, it's like I said, we're looking to kind of understand the origins and see maybe what those underlying root causes and components could be that were contributing to it. And if there's anything in our time and space reality right now that we can do to adjust any of that,
Yeah.
whether it be doing, like some somatic work, or sort of making some adjustments in our lifestyle now that might still be contributing to the underlying causes, like doing some detoxification. And then the other aspect, once you do that, is getting a really firm understanding of what autoimmune is and what's happening. A lot of people view autoimmune as the body attacking itself. And while through one lens that isn't necessarily untrue, I think it's kind of misleading, because really the body is always trying to find homeostasis, and the body is extremely intelligent, and the body wants to self-heal. And so when we view the body as kind of like the enemy, and we're like, oh, the body is attacking itself, it creates kind of this discord in our relationship with ourself and with our body, thinking like, well, my body's faulty and it doesn't know how to, communicate effectively with my brain and with the rest of my systems. Therefore, it's attacking itself. It kind of can keep this perpetuated state that doesn't allow us to kind of tap into that ability to find homeostasis. So really what I think is happening when autoimmune manifests is it's just warning signals, and the body is saying something isn't right, something isn't right, something is out of balance. And so when we learn to trust that and listen to that and lean into it, oftentimes we can find ways to work with the body. And, I don't think in all cases autoimmune is curable, but in many, many, many cases it is able to be put into remission. And then you can have a baseline where 80% of the time you feel pretty dang good. And, maybe what your triggers are for flares. And once in a while you're going to hit a trigger because life happens, but you at least have the tools then to dial it back and find your way back to your baseline much quicker. So typically speaking, like I said, it's, working with the underlying causes and doing somatic release work, therapy, ways to just get more physically in tune with your body, like even things like qigong, tai chi, yoga, things where you're present with your body is helpful. And then doing detoxification when necessary and under supervision of a licensed professional, just because we don't want to deal with any herx reactions. And then beyond that, it's really just focusing on your lifestyle and your stress levels. And some stress is completely outside of our control. Some stress is within our control. And so finding ways to set up your day-to-day routine that allow you to give more bandwidth in your nervous system, so that when things come up that aren't within your control, you're in a calmer state to be able to handle them. And I know with kids that can be a little bit challenging. How old is your son?
16.
16. Okay. So yeah, he's at a very pivotal time in life where he's, getting close to graduating high school. He's going through lots of hormonal changes, like you're trying to figure out who you are at that age. There's a lot of like social dynamics that can be really challenging at that age too. So I think, you got to be realistic in like, okay, there's all this stuff that's going on and it's going to happen, but maybe he can find ways in his day-to-day life where his morning routine supports him in staying in more of a calm state. Like he's not waking up right before he has to leave for school and he's running around like a chicken with his head chopped off and all stressed to get to the bus on time or get his ride to school. And then because then he's immediately running off like cortisol, stress hormones, and he's going into the day like that. And and then you're at school and you're trying to learn all day and you're dealing with your friends or like people who aren't your friends, whatever else happens in high school. It's been a while, but it's still the same. And then you come home and you're exhausted, and then it's like there's no bandwidth then either, right? So Yeah, I think too, and it depends on, how receptive he is to that, because sometimes at that age too, you don't really want to wake up earlier because you're like, I like my sleep, which is totally fair. But
Yes.
yeah, I would say seeing how receptive he is to having a supportive morning routine that allows him a little bit more time in the morning to stay calm, and then having some things he can do when he gets home from school to decompress,
Yeah.
and having, healthy outlets so that when he is frustrated, he has a healthy outlet to be able to get that frustration out so he's not bottling it up. And then too, looking at like I would say nutrition is another huge piece, and just your overall like lifestyle. And again too, like a 16-year-old kid, like I don't know what he's into, but a lot of 16-year-old boys, they want to play video games and they want to,
Yeah.
like do things that are like, and that's fine, but you got to kind of see if there's some little pieces that you can mix in there where,
Yeah.
yeah, you can play video games for a couple hours, but maybe you can also go for a walk and get some
Yeah.
fresh air, get out in nature, and like things like that that help to work with the body a little bit more. What's his diet like?
It's better now, but it hasn't always been great. Like if he had the option, he would eat out fast food all the time. But no, I would say it's better probably since we found out about the alopecia. So he's trying to eat more, like we'll cook at home and he makes himself food at home. It's still a lot of like wheat, like dairy, pizza. He loves pizza, but at least it's made at home for the most part. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the thing too is that it's finding healthier alternatives to things that they want to eat so they don't feel like
yes,
they're deprived, right? So it's
right.
okay, you like pizza? Well, we can get, and I mean, I'm 100% gluten and dairy free, and like I just get these frozen pre-made pizza crusts if I'm in a pinch that are gluten free, made from like
Yeah,
cauliflower, and they still taste decent. And then I just
yeah,
make my own pizza. Like I put my own sauce on and my own meat
yeah.
on, and I do goat cheese, so I'll put goat cheese on there. So it's just finding ways to make it so he doesn't hate food, or he's not like resentful
No,
that he's not
exactly.
gonna eat, like rabbit food. He's still gonna enjoy food, but it's with ingredients that aren't going to be as triggering to his gut and his immune system. So
That's a tough one because
yeah.
I was avoiding dairy and gluten and that kind of thing, and I get teased at home. I live with all guys, and like cauliflower crust, forget it. Like they'd rather not have it.
Yeah.
But whatever. At least when we make it, we make our own dough at home, and we're buying, decent ingredients, I guess. So yeah, because I think that was one of my questions is how do you increase, or I'm aware of things that he may have gone through, and I think I can reflect on maybe his childhood, but I don't know if he does, like some of those past things. Yeah, I don't know if he would do that. Yeah,
I mean, and that's totally fair because, especially at 16,
yeah,
are 16-year-olds super self-aware and reflecting on their past? Probably not. And that's
no,
pretty normal. In situations like that, I think something like tapping is the best because he doesn't necessarily have to talk about his experiences or even try to figure out what those experiences are. You can just tune into how it's manifesting emotionally. Like he may just find, even if he just feels very frustrated about having the autoimmune, like the alopecia, like that in of itself is a piece that we can work with and be like, okay, you're feeling really frustrated about having alopecia. And he's like, yeah, it's like a pain in the ass. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then you give them a tapping sequence, and all they have to do is just tap on the specific points, check in, and see if that emotion is moving out. And then
right,
once it has moved out, what you're doing is you're rewiring the brain, and you're also removing any energetic blocks tied to that emotion that's keeping it stuck in the body. So it's kind of like going in through the back door where he may not understand that the frustration towards his autoimmune actually goes deeper and is tied to things in childhood, but that's what it's still doing. It's still helping to work it out because I mean, I totally get it. As a 16-year-old, he's probably not going to want to go sit and talk with a therapist or go do like a somatic body work. Like that might just be too out of his wheelhouse, which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even ways to also like healthy outlets for frustration, like kickboxing or any
Yeah.
type of outlet where he can let energy out, because
Yes.
especially as a teenager with hormones, there's so much intensity of emotion. And if he's got nowhere to put that emotion, then he's going to just keep shoving it down. And what it's going to do is it's going to keep accumulating. And then that's going to have a compound effect on the autoimmune too.
Yeah.
So having a healthy outlet for him, like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know,
He's
boxing.
got soccer like
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
or five times a week. So that
Awesome.
is really good for him. Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
outlet. But I mean, even specifically for like getting like, I don't know, I was really angry when I was 16. So maybe I'm just using this as an example, but like I had a punching bag. And if
Okay.
I was like really mad, because like then there's no one around and you don't feel vulnerable. Like, because soccer is good where he's moving his body and he's pumping oxygen through for his cardiovascular system. And like it's really good for moving his body. But, and maybe with soccer, depending on how aggressive it gets, you could definitely get a little
Yeah.
bit of in soccer too. But when you have those moments of like overwhelm of emotion, being able to like go for a run or punch a punching bag or anything like that, like more of an individual activity, because it's going to be when it comes up. And then it allows him, when he's feeling those emotions, to have an outlet for them versus him feeling like I can't get angry right now, so I have to push this down, or like finding a way to numb it or, dissociate. It stops it from getting trapped.
Okay.
essen-
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then with the diet thing, with nutrition wise, you can only meet him where he's willing to meet you. You can't
Yeah.
force it, and the more you force it, probably the more he'll push back anyways.
Totally.
So
Totally.
it's just, I mean, it's good that you're making a lot of stuff from home. And like if he is gonna do dairy, like, I mean, would he be willing to switch to goat even and like have goat cheese
You know
versus
what? We
cow?
did that for years when he was little because he had some sensitivities at the time. And so I think now that he's had his taste of everything, it's pretty hard to go back. But yeah, no, he's not really that open to it right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it is unfortunate because the diet with the autoimmune, it won't, I mean, for some people it does put it into remission, but for a lot of people it's more about taking the triggers off the immune system to give the
Yeah.
body time to self heal.
Yes.
Just one of the
Yes.
pieces. But you know what?
Okay.
He may just need the time right now to not worry about it. And when he's like 20, he might change his mind.
Totally.
He might, progress in that direction. But does he take any type of supplementation?
Yeah, we have a naturopath, so she's given him some cortisol.
Ashwagandha probably, or
It's TAD, so it's a
oh yeah,
pill, like a supplement. So it's a vitamin, and then I think it has some sort of adrenal support. So yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then just like natural anti-inflammatories are really great, like turmeric.
Okay.
Turmeric and ginger. I really love the Living Alchemy turmeric
Yeah.
alive, because it's a combination of fermented turmeric and ginger that work very synergistically on the inflammatory pathways. And so that is something that I recommend to pretty much every single one of my clients with chronic inflammation and autoimmune,
Okay.
in the turmeric. Just make sure you take it away from any other supplementation, because it is a binder and it does focus on liver flushing. So it will push anything else out if you take it.
Out.
So
Okay.
I
And
use
what was it called? What brand?
Turmeric Alive by Living Alchemy, and it's actually a local brand, actually based out of BC, but they're very accessible in all health food stores across Canada.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
that,
Thank
and
you.
then the other thing is magnesium. Like,
Oh, yeah.
can't drive that one home enough. I would say that and vitamin D are the two things that the vast majority of the population is the most deficient in. But specifically with magnesium, it's responsible, or it is in some part responsible for over three to 600 different functions in the body.
Okay.
And when we're magnesium deficient, that manifests with hormone imbalances, sleep issues, like so many different things. Also, too, as a 16-year-old, he's growing, he's dealing with his muscle stretching and everything. It helps significantly with that. And especially if he's doing soccer, like having adequate hydration through minerals, including magnesium, is like so important. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's great.
Can I ask you a quick question then as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you say detoxing, so what is that process? And then I guess like my mother-in-law has RA and she's had it for now like 15 years. And so she's on a ton of medication and that type of stuff. So is that very similar? Like I can see some of it being very similar, but then, yeah.
Yeah, so so rheumatoid arthritis, again, it's autoimmune based, and you're dealing with inflammation specifically, with the joints. So it does with detox though, it can be very bio individual. I don't love the let's throw mud at the wall and see what sticks approach with detox, and the let's just bomb the living crap out of your system and try to kill everything and then replenish it. I think that's a little bit overkill, but I think it's more so based on how they're presenting with symptoms. You can kind of pinpoint. You can do testing as well to identify certain things. Unfortunately, blood chemistry is very limited, other than, certain things like if your white blood cell count is low, you can tell sometimes there's a low grade infection happening with the body. But when you're looking at autoimmune, it's so incredibly common to have co-infections and comorbidities. So a lot of times you're dealing with gut infections, with intestinal permeability and things like that. So when I'm looking at detox, the first thing I'm always looking at, which is actually not directly detoxing, it's supporting your detox pathways. And that's like, it's opening your drainage pathways. So it's making sure that you're supporting your lymphatic system, your liver, your gallbladder, your kidneys, your colon, making sure that everything is functioning properly, because these are your main line of defense for eliminating toxins. So if your lymphatic system's blocked, if your liver is stagnant, if your colon is blocked, you're not going to the bathroom consistently, things like this, you're reabsorbing toxins. So there's basic practices that you can do to open up your drainage pathways and make sure they're functioning properly so that you're able to more readily dispel toxins. So the main things I always look at is if you deal with a lot of like puffiness. So if like your skin indents easily where like marks stay, if you're not sweating, if you don't sweat easily, if you're not going to the bathroom at least once a day, ideally twice a day, if you're not, peeing regularly, if you're not drinking enough water, a lot of times with the liver, it comes out through the skin. So if you're dealing with skin issues, if you're dealing with itchy skin, or if you've got rashes, things like that are usually indication of liver stagnation. Also too with the eyes, if the eyes aren't super clear, if there's redness or irritation with the eyes or bags under the eyes, oftentimes that's correlated with the liver too. If you're nauseous in the morning and don't want to eat, that's another big thing with the liver. So it's kind of just like, and there's lots of information online where you can go and be like signs of stagnant liver, signs of blocked lymphatic system, and you can kind of get an idea of which one of the drainage pathways you're having the most challenge with, and then start doing daily practices to help open them up. Herbs also can be very helpful. Like I use Harmonic Arts. I really like Harmonic Arts. Their herb blends. I use their tinctures and their teas for helping to stimulate liver and lymphatic and colon and things like that. And acupuncture is also extremely helpful for being able to do that as well, and any type of like RMT, lymphatic drainage massage, things like this. So that's like your baseline starting point for detox is don't detox. Make sure that your body can handle detox first by getting everything open. And then once you have done that, then you can start to segue into doing some detoxification. But again, you want to pinpoint what needs to detox first. So if you're presenting with signs of like a candida overgrowth, or if you test positive on like a stool test or through blood work and stuff for parasites, then you're looking at, doing a specific protocol for that. But I would say with autoimmune, typically the liver is always a huge one. Making sure that you can get the liver going, and even doing like a liver flush, or even just shifting your diet for a couple weeks to give the liver a bit of a break, eating less fat, increasing your bitters and your leafy greens, and eating leaner meats like chicken and fish. Things like that really help, just to give the liver a bit of a break. And then the turmeric that I mentioned, turmeric is really great for the liver. And then the other thing that I recommend, but I would not start with it, is doing liver flushing with apple cider vinegar and grapefruit juice. So I recommend this to a lot of my clients when they're doing like an intro protocol. And I do tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in 2 to 4 ounces of grapefruit juice first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. It helps to stimulate the digestion, and it also will dump the liver. So it helps a lot with any type of like gastrointestinal kind of like IBS like symptoms, and also if you're having any skin issues, and if the liver is stagnant. So yeah, that's like your starting point. And then for actual detox, it needs to be specific to each person depending on how they're presenting with symptoms or what their test results say. I always kind of do both. It's like, okay, what are your symptoms? And a lot of times based on what their symptoms are, I'm like, okay, that's pretty like, textbook or classic signs of X, Y, and Z toxicity. And then you can do blood analysis and functional testing, like stool testing and urine analysis, to kind of see specifically what's showing up, and then you kind of customize it from there. But honestly, a lot of people see a big difference just from focusing on their drainage pathways, because a lot of times it's the fact that the body is just inundated and overwhelmed with toxins, because when one organ stops working properly, there's always a domino effect. And so if the liver gets backed up, well, guess what? Now the gallbladder's backed up, and now your bile is really sticky. And when the bile gets really sticky, the bile has the antimicrobial properties to properly kill and eliminate like parasites and candida, those opportunistic bacterias. And so right there already, you've now just put stress on your small intestine, your large intestine, and your colon. And then you can have the migration of bacteria, and the bacteria is not getting flushed out because the bile is stagnant, but it started in the liver. So you see where I'm going with this? It's that domino effect. So it's good to just make sure that you're opening up every drainage pathway possible so your body can handle the elimination process even without doing detox, even just for your day-to-day life. And I love doing dry brushing and infrared sauna, hot and cold therapy if you can handle that. Sometimes with arthritis, that isn't always the best option. But for other people, it can be super helpful. Actually, Hayley and I were just talking about this the other week. We were talking about cold therapy, and I said, well, you can just dunk your face in cold water. You don't have to do your whole body. You can just dunk your face, and it helps to reset the vagus nerve, and also can be really good for stress and inflammation as well. So that's kind of like a good option for someone with arthritis, because they're probably not going to want to put their whole body in freezing cold water. That's I mean, for some it works well, but I don't recommend it, because for some people it can be excruciatingly painful, especially if they're alternating with hot and cold. So the face is always a safe bet to start with. But yeah, with the rheumatoid arthritis, especially doing things to help with the inflammation. So diet again is a huge one, eating an anti-inflammatory diet. Um, it's very sort of all over the place. Like, what is an anti-inflammatory diet? Some people say it's one thing, some people say it's another. Specific to autoimmune, you're looking at a modified version of the paleo diet, which is called autoimmune paleo. It is definitely restrictive, but it's meant to be done in phases. So you start by eliminating a lot of foods, but then you reintroduce the foods and you get to figure out, okay, this works for my body, this doesn't work for my body. So that way you do open up how many foods you're able to eat, but then you're very clear on what foods your body is not able to tolerate in that point in time with the state of your immune system. So you just avoid those foods. And then oftentimes, once you've eliminated them for, you know, 3 months, you can start to reintroduce them and you won't have a reaction to them. And you may find like there's certain foods that after that time, you can reintroduce them and maybe have them twice a week, but just not every day because your body will have a certain tolerance for it, but maybe, not a tolerance enough to overdo it. And then also too, taking digestive enzymes with all of that really helps too. Like even looking at lactose intolerance, like lactose intolerance is when you lack the enzymes to break down lactose. And so if someone's lacking those enzymes, taking a digestive enzyme helps take some of that burden off of the system. And then you don't end up with the same kind of reaction. But yeah, diet is huge, supporting drainage pathways and anti-inflammatory practices. But honestly, the biggest thing that I see driving inflammation is stress. And this is usually the hardest one for people because, we can make changes in our diet and we can do this and that, but we're not really ever given the tools in childhood or adulthood even on how to effectively cope and manage stress in a healthy way. I think we deal with a lot of maladaptive tools for stress, which are sort of tools that have a bit of a backlash where in the moment you're like, yeah, having that glass of wine is going to help take the stress off me now, but it kind of doesn't really deal with the problem. It's kind of just like an instant coping mechanism, and then the stress comes back and there it is again, right? So I think learning how to understand where your nervous system is at, what your cues are for stress, and you can tell sort of when you're at your threshold, and then having tools to mitigate that stress response. Because when we look at like a dysregulated nervous system versus a regulated nervous system, a regulated nervous system doesn't mean that you never get stressed out. It means that your nervous system has the bandwidth to be able to handle that stress, and you will go into a fight or flight, freeze or fawn response, but you will snap back into a regulated, or not into a regulated, you will snap back into a parasympathetic state much quicker. Whereas someone who's dysregulated, they're pretty much in that fight or flight state all the time. And then your cortisol is high all the time. And then eventually your adrenals just can't take it anymore. And then your cortisol flatlines. And then you're walking around like a zombie all the time, which I think probably most of us can relate to at some point or another in our lives. But yeah, just having her really figure out what her biggest life stressors are, or even her just becoming more self-aware of how she responds to stressful situations, or even how she just feels when she wakes up in the morning when nothing is happening. Like, does she still feel in a heightened state then where she's, anxious or apprehensive or waiting for the other shoe to drop? Because a lot of people literally exist like that all the time. And it's very, very challenging for the body to self-heal when we're constantly in that state. Like when we're in that state, our body doesn't even want to digest food. It's like we're running from a bear right now and we're fighting for our lives, and screw digestion, screw self-healing, screw all of that. This is like survival mode, which, it has its time and its place. It's there for a reason. But unfortunately with our modern lifestyle, we've become so accustomed to living in that state permanently. And I think that's a huge reason why we see a lot of degradation in our physical and mental health because our body just can't handle it for extended periods of time. Yeah, so I would just be looking at her stressors and her diet, and then drainage pathways. Like that would be like the starting point before you even get into any type of detoxing. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I know that was like a whole
I love it. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? No? Okay. I'm trying to think of something else and I need to take a sip of water here. Speaking of hydration.
Actually, I'll ask a question real quick.
Absolutely.
Hormones. I'm having hormonal imbalance. We were talking about this the last time, like last week with Hayley.
Mhm.
And like, what can I do? Like, I am taking, it's called Cycle Smart. It's a vitamin to help with hormones.
Is that the Lorna
But,
Vanderhaeg one?
pardon?
Lorna Vanderhaeg? Is that Cycle Smart? I'm just it's like women, it's either the
It's
women.
this little pink bottle.
Yeah, that's Lorna. Oh, right. They changed Lorna Vanderhaeg to Smart Solutions because she left the company.
Oh,
That
okay,
is
yeah.
the one that I'm thinking of. Yeah. So it's helpful for me to know because hormones are such a spectrum. Like you could be dealing with so many different types of hormonal imbalances. So specifically with that, you're working with like your female hormones, your sex hormones specifically.
Yeah, it all kind of started when I went off of birth control,
Okay.
and then I gained a bunch of weight. Now I can't get rid of it. Issues with anxiety still, different things. Like I did do a Reiki session, which helped a lot, but I think I need to do another one. Like I kind of like what you were talking about, where you go through and actually figure out what's actually wrong, because it might not even be that. So it'd be nice to actually know, okay, what actually is wrong, so I can eliminate it and get rid of it, because I've never dealt with anxiety before except for the last 2 years. So it'd be nice to go back to normal and not have to deal with this anymore. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Coming
Yeah.
off of birth control can be very bumpy. It's a rocky
Yeah.
road. And so the body can respond differently for each person, but there are a lot of classic symptoms that women deal with from coming off of birth control. And so essentially what happens is it's chaos. So synthetic hormones have been pumping through your system for so long, replacing the production of your actual hormones, that when you remove that stimulus, all of a sudden everyone's like, sorry, what are we supposed to be doing? What is supposed to be getting produced right now? And so when we see like that stubborn weight gain, oftentimes that's your estrogen. It's also tied in with your insulin. So there's a lot of imbalance that comes with the estrogen creating insulin resistance. And so those two very much work in tandem. And so it's about increasing your insulin sensitivity and also, but you know what the biggest thing with estrogen is? The liver. So the liver is what processes and expels the excess estrogen. So a lot of times when you're dealing with high estrogen load, it's because of the liver. And so I can't remember exactly what's in Cycle Smart, but I used to work as a supplement consultant. So
Okay.
I worked with that brand and I'm pretty familiar with their formulations, but I mean, having like that IC3 and the Brocogen and the things that help to support the liver and sort of balance out that estrogen response, specifically with hormone imbalances. And like you mentioned with like anxiety, oftentimes that's cortisol. So, and again, these all work in tandem together when we have like the insulin resistance, the estrogen dominance, and the high cortisol. And those are all a recipe for anxiety, feeling wired but tired, stubborn weight gain, mood swings, and feeling like blood sugar crashes where like you feel exhausted if or you get hangry if you don't eat and then you do eat and then you just want to like pass out. Like all of those things kind of work together. So there's lots of things you can do to help to stabilize your hormones. You're kind of going through a natural detoxification process right now because of what was in the birth control, and your body is trying to like get things back on track. And so you are doing some eliminating, but it does cause a lot of stress on the liver. So I would say supporting the liver would be like the number one thing. And then I would, especially if you're dealing with the weight gain, I would be looking at removing a lot of sugar, and even sometimes carbohydrate, like limiting carbohydrates, not anything too restrictive, but just, you know, to a point where like you're increasing your protein. I would say like protein and fat would be like number one of what you want to increase. And then just looking at how you can stabilize the blood sugar and effectively start to cycle the hormones properly. I do energetic work on that too. So I work with like the MSH, which is like your stimulating hormone. I can work on all the organs to make sure that they're all working in tandem, communicating properly. And then also just support your body to be properly rebalancing, because really that's what you're looking for, is you're trying to find like that baseline again after coming off of birth control, where everybody knows what their job is and they know what they're doing and they're able to do it properly. Yeah, I'm sorry that you went through that. Another really helpful resource that I absolutely love, and I think she wrote a book specifically on this, is oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look up her name. I will send it to you, but she's a doctor and she wrote a book on hormonal birth control and coming off the pill. And she is like super knowledgeable and fantastic. And I don't know why her name's evading me. Definitely follow her on social media, but I will get you that info because she's a really great resource for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Oh,
it's been about
magnesium. I would say for you, same thing, magnesium.
I actually do take magnesium because I also go to like a vitamin doctor as well, and I've been trying that. Yeah, I take like vitamin B, or no, I went off vitamin B because it was giving me lots of anxiety as well. Like it was causing me to get anxious. And my mom was telling me, well, sometimes vitamin B can do that, but it was like a complex. It was mixed, all the Bs, and maybe it was just too much. Like my body didn't need all of it, because I found TMI time, but I was like peeing like a lot being on vitamin B. So I don't know.
A lot of times that's actually indicative of a MTHFR gene mutation. So it's folate. So you can't handle folate, which is a B vitamin, when you have the MTHFR gene mutation, and it can cause that. So it's making sure that you're taking a B supplement with a methylated which is folic acid, but sometimes too, it's like a matter of just getting your B vitamins from natural sources. Like, do you eat red meat?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, mostly chicken if I'm gonna choose a meat, even though I'm getting sick of chicken. But a lot of like eating red meats gives me acid reflux lately. I've been dealing with a lot of that and trying to get that under control as well. Just because I'm pretty sure it's from all the stress that I went through as well. So I don't
100%.
know if that's what's causing it, but I noticed red meat can be a trigger for, and like breads and stuff. So I have been trying to cut a lot of the breads and stuff out. Sometimes it's hard though, because my body does crave carbs all the time. Because like you said, my blood sugar levels will spike and then drop constantly. Yeah. So then I feel like I'm eating like every 2 hours almost, like just snacking. And that's probably where all the weight gain is coming from. So
It definitely can play into it. Yeah, but
yeah.
if you're having acid reflux from eating meat, always would be two things that I would come to mind. One, that means your stomach acid is low, which means you're not producing enough stomach acid, which means you need to be taking a digestive enzyme or bitters before you eat, because meat does require more acid to digest. It's that, and raw vegetables are like, they can be a little bit harder on the digestion. So really important to be taking a digestive enzyme, and you can take a digestive enzyme specifically that has enzymes for breaking down meat and fat. And then the other thing I would say is, if you're getting acid reflux from eating meat, make sure that you're eating higher quality meat. Because a lot of times with red meat, if it's a lower quality meat, it can be that there's other stuff in it that it's not jiving so well with the system. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
obviously like kind of challenging, because I know that, you know, we live in Canada. Meat is very expensive. I'm, you know, I won't be
Yeah.
ignorant to that fact. But I always try to source my beef locally, when possible. Like, do you live in Saskatchewan?
Yes, I live in Lloydminster, and there's it's called Shannon or Lower Shannon Farms actually, and they do all of like grass-fed natural, and I actually bought a bunch of meat from them. And when I had that sausage tonight, I didn't have acid reflux. But I do take super enzymes. I just ran out, and those did help
Yes, that
for
makes
digestion. So that's good to know. So I'm kind of already doing what I should be doing. I just gotta keep
Yeah.
doing it.
And the
basically.
super enzymes are those the ones by now?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is a good blend because it has ox bile, which is like your bile salts, which is good for breaking down fat. That also they have the pancreatic enzymes and a lot of the stuff in them that's really helpful for digesting meat. So I'd say like the biggest things for you is make sure you're taking digestive enzymes before every meal. And I would be structuring your meals to support blood sugar balancing, which would be like I would do a high emphasis on animal protein. I would be doing probably at least 30 grams of protein per meal if you can. And then doing like leafy greens, like even if you do like some meal and you have like a side salad of like some arugula with like some apple cider vinegar, balsamic dressing, and like a couple things on it, just helps with the liver and with the digestion. And then just I would trial and error with complex carbs and see how you feel, because everyone's different. Like your glycemic sensitivity can be different for everybody. So like for me, if I eat like a scoop of rice, but I eat it with 30 grams of protein and then some veg, I'm fine. Like I don't get tired or I don't feel like blah afterwards. But if I eat like even, like gluten-free pasta and like there's a lot more of the carbs than there is of the protein, then I tend to feel like kind of lethargic after. And that's a sign that the blood sugar is not balanced. It's doing the up and down. So you can play around with it and I would keep like a food and mood journal and just track and see how you're feeling after you're eating certain food combinations. But I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, is just the focusing on the emphasis on protein. So I'd aim for 30 grams, which like is easy when you're doing, red meat and chicken for breakfast. It can be a little bit more challenging because like 30 grams of protein is like 5 eggs.
Oh.
Sometimes that's a lot to choke down. So
Yeah.
even if you do like a protein shake or something in the morning instead and combine it with something else, or like for me to break it up, I'll do some eggs, but I'll also have like some chicken or turkey sausage with the eggs. So it's not like I'm just eating a whole bunch of eggs because yeah, that gets a little bit old. And then protein shakes on days where you just want something easier and need a break. But yeah, I do find specifically for blood sugar balancing and for hormones, the protein emphasis is really important. And then also monitoring your carbohydrate intake and seeing how sensitive you are. Because some people are like hyporeactive. They have hyporeactive glycemia where they can't eat any carbohydrates, or they're up and down. And so they do really well from like ketogenic or carnivore or just like a strict low carb diet. But I don't generally recommend people start with that, because don't do it unless you have to, because sometimes that can cause more problems if it's not what your body needs. So always start more
Right.
general, just pay attention. And then if you need to fine tune it down the road, then you can. At least you know that there is that option that you can lead into, but then you're not starting with that feeling like you're eliminating all the fun from food.
Right. Yeah, because I've never had an issue with carbs before. It's just since all the acid reflux and different things. So like I'm probably fine with them, but I do want to cut that stuff because I mean eating bread is obviously not healthy and I'm trying to live a more healthier lifestyle. So like, reducing a lot of it is a good thing. So
Absolutely. Or like if you're gonna eat bread, have a single slice, make sure it's frozen first, and have sourdough. So one thing is that you increase the amount of resistant starch in the bread when you freeze it first. Fun fact, a lot of people don't know that. So if you like have frozen bread and then you toast it, lower glycemic index because it has a higher amount of resistant starch, which is easier for the body to process without spiking the blood sugar. And then the other thing is sourdough is typically easier to digest and a little bit better too because of the fermentation. The other thing that would be actually like fantastic for you, because it's a double whammy for blood sugar and for acid reflux slash digestion, is apple cider vinegar. Never ever take it straight because you will burn your esophagus. Or like me, one time I almost choked to death. I was like, because I shot back like straight apple cider vinegar. And I thought I was gonna choke to death on it. So don't do that. Mix it with water. But if you take a shot of apple cider vinegar before your meals, it's actually incredible the studies that they've done where they show like someone eating a meal without taking the apple cider vinegar first and how the blood sugar spikes versus taking the apple cider vinegar first, and you get a much lower spike on the blood sugar. So, and apple cider vinegar also helps to stimulate that acid production in the stomach before you eat. So it will also help you with not getting acid reflux because you'll have enough acid in the stomach to help to break down the food first.
Okay. So would I take the the apple cider vinegar before I eat and
Right.
then take the enzyme after I eat?
No, I would do both before you eat, but
Both before I
you can do the apple cider vinegar like 15 minutes before you eat, just because you don't want to have water right before you eat. Actually, that's just a fun random fact if anyone wants to know. Don't drink liquids while you eat food because it actually neutralizes your stomach acid and makes it much harder for your body to digest. So it's better to not drink liquids while you're eating. So take like shot apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon, dilute it in a bit of water, drink that 15 minutes before, and then take your digestive enzyme as you're about to eat your meal.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
I'm just sharing your website in the chat for where people can find you and your Instagram. I'm just searching your
Here, I can type it, Hayley. I know it off the top of my head.
your website. Okay, because I have your Instagram. I'll also share on my page.
My website is actually under construction at the moment.
Oh, okay.
It's here's the link, like here's the actual link. Oh shit, I messed that up. One sec. There's not this. There we go. The.holistic.ginger.
I'm
Yes.
learning so much. I have a page of notes myself. From
I know.
everything.
I apologize if I like usually when I answer a question, I like just my brain shuts off and I just spurt out like a whole bunch of information. So I hope it's not too much for
No,
anyone.
I love it. I was gonna say, or I guess I had a little question kind of, so we talk about stress obviously being very impactful as far as our health, and obviously our diet and our nutrition is very important. And the other one is usually sleep. So if someone is struggling like me, I'm a terrible sleeper. Sleep aids don't usually work for me. I have found one, but I try not to use it, unless I'm in desperate need. And yes, we've talked before about somatic exercises. I know I need to be, and that was the sticking my face. Yes, I've been sticking my face in a bowl of cold water every morning, because my nervous system gets, when I'm in a heightened state of stress, I get stuck in that flight mode. So I literally want to flee and, want to, take off into the woods or wherever, book a flight, and get out of here when I'm experiencing extreme stress. So that has been helping in the mornings and kind of before I go to bed to kind of just check myself and bring myself back. But as far as sleep, are there things we can do to kind of promote that rest and sleep without and I know kind of Maria, you were talking to about her son's routine and stuff, and I'm very much I'm not 16 anymore, but getting up in the morning, I'm very obsessed with my sleep. Like I like to go to bed early, but then when my alarm goes, or if I wake up naturally at like 5:30, I won't just get up because I'm like, no, I need to sleep for an extra hour. Like but I know in the past I have a tendency to oversleep and then cause myself. So kind of how do you find that sweet spot for yourself, and what are some things you can do to kind of help if you're working on the nutrition and your stress levels, like how can I balance myself out with my sleep?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So first off is your sleep hygiene, which is your evening routine. So what are you doing in the evening? If you tend to run a bit high on the cortisol, then you need to gear your evening routine towards reducing cortisol. So number one is technology. And I know that none of us want to hear it because we all want to watch Netflix at night and we want to be on our phones, doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever the heck our vice is. But studies have shown that the amount of cortisol increase and also to the impact on our hormones because of the reduction of melatonin production from looking at a blue screen is significant. So when you're looking at a screen and any type of artificial light at night, you are suppressing your body's ability to produce melatonin, which is what you need to go to sleep. So number one, I would be looking at limiting screen time. I have switched to reading novels at night because I need something like to unwind. And so I just read a novel and I find that I get sleepy much quicker if I have like, just a soft lamp on, like a side lamp, and I read on the couch or even sometimes in bed, depending on how tired I am. But switching out my, entertainment of Netflix or scrolling on Instagram at night for reading a book, that's really helpful. Or just limiting your screen time in general. You can find something else to do, but I find reading the easiest. The other thing is you can make this yourself, but tart cherry gummies. And they're super easy to make. And you take, or you can drink it. But if you're the type of person like me that has to wake up and pee usually in the night, it's best not to drink liquids right before bed. Because that also interrupts your sleep cycle when you have to wake up in the night to go to the bathroom. So tart cherry juice, and you make gummies with it, and you can add magnesium as well. And that again is helping to produce melatonin, helps to get you a little bit sleepy. And then having a bath at night is another thing that's really good because it helps to really calm the nervous system. It relaxes you. So doing like an Epsom salt bath is really, really great to do in the evening. Again, like I know I keep driving home the magnesium thing, but magnesium again is a really, really helpful thing to take in the evening to help to unwind and support your hormones. If you find you're anxious at night, which is again another indication of high cortisol, taking something else to help with that would be like ashwagandha or like a passion flower tincture. So if I'm like let's say that something happened and it's something that I'm like ruminating about and it's causing me like anxiety or stress, and that's going to prevent me from being able to just go to sleep. I just will take passion flower tincture. So I'll do like a dropper full of passion flower tincture 30 minutes before I want to go to bed. And then right when I want to go to sleep, I'll take another 30 or another dropper full, which is about 30 mils. That's just me. Some people do better with lemon balm. Some people do better with a blend. The top ones are if you really need the extra support of herbs to go to sleep at night, other than taking magnesium and doing like a tart cherry juice, would be lemon balm, valerian root, and passion flower. And a lot of times you can find blends that have all three together. Sometimes they have skull cap and hops and some other stuff in there, which is good too. But like the three main ones that I find work the best are lemon balm, valerian, and passion flower. The other thing too, like you said, with finding the sweet spot is figure out how many hours of sleep you need at night. So for me, I need 9 hours, and that seems like a lot, but I just know that I function better off of 9 hours of sleep. So I have to be like, okay, I need 9 hours of sleep. So if I need to get up at 7, then I know that I need to be in bed by 9. So you just have to you got to play around with it and see. But the thing is like, if you wake up in the morning and you're wanting to just go back to sleep because you feel like you need more, you've eliminated that problem by going to sleep at the right time at night and knowing I've already had my 9 hours of sleep or whatever that sweet spot is for you that you can figure out. I've already had the X amount of hours of sleep that I need, and then just get up. Because if you've already had enough sleep and then you go back to sleep, oftentimes when you wake up again, you're more tired and it's way harder to get motivated and get up. So once you know you've had like that set amount of sleep time, get up would be my recommendation. But you'll notice a huge difference just in making shifts in your evening routine. Like, honestly, if I had to say like a perfect evening routine would be to have a bubble bath, read your book in the bath with like some candlelight or some soft light, have a couple of your gummies, maybe do a little bit of your tincture if you need to, and then get cozy. And it's also better to sleep in a cold bedroom. So studies have shown when your bedroom is cooler, you sleep better. So, respond accordingly to that. If you like, make sure you have a nice thick duvet if you tend to get a bit chilly. I always put on like some warm fuzzy socks, which actually really helps me go to sleep. And then I also make sure I have like I am the most high maintenance sleeper you could possibly imagine. My bedroom has to be a certain temperature. I have to have a fan on. I have Hertz music playing. I have to have X amount of pillows, and it has to be a certain pillow that's the one behind my head, and it has to be fluffed properly. And I need the fuzzy socks, and like I have all the things, but you know what? I sleep pretty dang good. So it's like let yourself have that setup that you need if that helps you get better sleep. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Did that miss anything for you, or was there anything else you wanted me to like expound on more, or something that isn't working?
No, I think it's all things I know I need to do. I am very much like I sleep with a cold bedroom. I put my fuzzy socks on, that sort of thing. Not crazy about baths, but I'll do it. But what my biggest thing is the TV. I really struggle with not watching. I put my timer on and I have to fall asleep to the noise of a TV. I did switch to Hertz music for about a week just to try, and I still fell asleep and I actually slept better, but I get really panicked about waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep. But if I put on like The Office, boom, I'm out. So that's kind of my crutch, is that TV. But I am starting to read. I still have the TV on while I'm reading, but I'm slowly, I don't know, it's really difficult to break that
Habit.
with the TV. And I'm trying to spend less time in my bedroom as well, because bedroom, just getting my body known, like okay, bed is for sleeping. Like even in the mornings on the weekend, I try to get out of bed at a certain time, so that my brain isn't like, okay, we're not just gonna, because otherwise I will bring my computer into my bed and sit and do stuff from my bed all day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, like ideally not having a TV in the bedroom would be best, because your brain will associate the bedroom with like watching TV, and then that makes your sleep habits a little bit more challenging. But I would say even if you can put on YouTube where you've just got you can, there's lots of stuff on YouTube where you can just have like an aesthetic background and it plays like soft music, or you can put the Hertz music on your TV that has like, pretty colors or like anything like that, where you're still getting sort of the mimicry of you watching a TV show and the TV's on, but it's not a show. And then you can read your book or do whatever while that's on. Cause like, I think for you, it's just the comfort of having background noise.
yeah.
And so if you can kind of mimic that, but then take it away at the same time where you're not focusing on it, like I'll put on like a pretty living room with like like it's snowing and there's like a crackling fire and it has like some soft music playing, and I'll read my book on the couch with that, just for a little bit of background noise. And I think that's totally fine. So even if you did that in bed but you're reading a book, but you can have that on in the background instead of like, The Office. And even if you need to fall asleep to that on, like obviously from a artificial light perspective that's not ideal, but it's like do make the rules so you can win, make it work for you. So if that's kind of like a segue for you, or that's a happy medium where you're kind of, moving in the right direction, and it's not like all the way there, but it's enough where you're like, okay, I can get on board with this, and it makes it easier to like transition over time. So yeah, make it work for you. But that would be my suggestion, is to just try to put on some background music with like some pretty aesthetic instead, and see how you do with that. Personally, I sleep with Hertz music every night, because with that and between that and the fan, because I'm a light sleeper and I was sleeping with earplugs, but I found the earplugs really irritating. I don't wake up because there's enough background noise that it sort of muffles if there's any other sound, and it doesn't wake me up. And I sleep really good with the Hertz music. So the other
That's
thing
weird.
too
Like
is
I
never-
can't, oh, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, never sleep with your phone plugged in beside your bed, because the amount of radiation that is being emitted from your phone, like that will screw your cortisol. Like that will absolutely mess with your circadian rhythm and cause you to wake up during the night. Like do not sleep. Like they've shown the increase in radiation of a phone when it's plugged in and you're sleeping next to that for 8 hours. Like please don't do that. Don't do it.
Yeah, I basically have a charging station on my bedside table.
Oh,
Terrible. My Fitbit, everything's
Yeah.
charged.
So like if
Yeah.
you have to have it in your bedroom, put it on the other side of the room and always put your phone in airplane mode and turn off your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi connections to your phone at night. Like, so I have an old school iPhone dock and I keep it on the other side of my bedroom and I put my phone on that and I play the music, but it's literally on the other side, like the farthest other side of my bedroom. And then I have my Bluetooth turned off, my Wi-Fi turned off, and my airplane mode on. And I even unplug my Wi-Fi router, but I'm extra, so.
I'm not doing that. It takes forever for my internet to kick off again.
Yeah, well,
Um,
the point with that is that your body needs at least 4 hours a day without that interference. And it's not possible if you live in an apartment building. So fair enough. If you live in an apartment building, like you're not getting away from it anyways because you've got everyone else's Wi-Fi routers all around you. But if you live in a detached home, like ideally for your cells, for your body, because you go through autophagy and like your body goes through like the most healing while you're sleeping. Like that's how it's regenerating. Everything is during your sleep. So when there's an electromagnetic frequency that you're being inundated with that whole time, it's shown that cells get confused and it messes with things. It messes with your circadian rhythm. So it's ideal to have a break from it at night, but again, baby steps and being realistic to your lifestyle. Like I didn't start with that. It's been a progression over the years of me, doing all these things and upping the ante. And also too, I've just had so many intense health issues that I haven't really had a choice. I've had to do so many things for my health because I'm an ultra sensitive person. So yeah, just start with what feels realistic for you.
I was quite shocked. I still have the mattress that we slept on when we did our road trip when we were 18, and I sent a picture. It's a memory foam topper. It's not even a mattress. And we slept on that for 10 days when we were 18, no back problems at all. And I have to have like 5 of those before I can have any kind of comfortable sleep now. So it's funny how as we get older, my bed is pimped out. I make sure it's very comfortable for me. Well, I will try it for 2 weeks. I'll report back on our next Sunday meeting and update everybody who's there on how that is going. But yeah, and I guess getting up will be easier when my phone is across the room. So
yeah, that's the other thing too, is like when my alarm goes off in the morning. And also, this is another thing, do not have a super aggressive, abrasive alarm, because that is like for cortisol, that is going to immediately jolt your system in a way that you do not want it to be jolted when you wake up in the morning, unless you're the person who will sleep through like any alarm and you're like the most dead of the night sleeper. My sister's like that, so she has to have like 5 alarms, but I have like a soft twinkly alarm. So when my alarm goes off, and I have it set so it starts off quieter and then it slowly gets louder if I don't get up and turn it off right away. But it's good because I have to get out of bed to walk across my bedroom to turn my alarm off because it's on the other side of my bedroom. And then I'm up. I mean, I'm usually up anyways because I have a dog and she wakes up around the same time every day, but it allows me to wake up without it being super intense. Like, cause I used to have like an intense alarm and I noticed like I'd wake up and my heart would be racing or I'd be like kind of disoriented. And now it's just like very soft and gentle. And I'm like, okay, my alarm's going off. I get up, I turn it off. And then it allows you more time to kind of like adjust to being awake. It's more gentle, and it's good to have a morning routine that kind of allows you to build up to going full on into your day. So having like some quiet time in the morning. I like to read in the morning too. I make my coffee in the morning and I sit on my biomat, which is like warm, and I read my book and snuggle with my dog. And I find that a really good way to start the day. So yeah, it's just little, like, in all these little things, I think individually might not make a huge difference, but when you do them all together, it makes a huge difference.
Sorry, we're coming up, I guess, on an hour and a half. So if we have any other questions, feel free to ask. I know Maria said she has to run. And just how does everyone, do
Maria.
people feel comfortable with this being shared? Like if we share this recording, and I'll definitely send out the link, because I know there's a bunch of things that I need to go back to. So many notes I have written down. And I will share Alyssa's page on my Downstream coaching page as well. But does anyone have any further questions for Alyssa? I could literally talk her ear off. She's so knowledgeable with so many different things.
Thank you all so much. Thank you very, very much. Thanks, Alyssa. That was great.
Thanks for joining, Maria. It was so nice to meet you.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good night.
And Leanne's got to step out as well.
Yeah, I gotta run as well.
Joining,
So
Leanne.
thank you, and we'll chat soon, guys. Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay.
It was nice to meet you. Have a good night. Bye.
Is there anything else from Colleen? Because they're good.
No, she answered everything like to a T, and I'm gonna do the same thing as you, kind of just record it as I go and just
Yeah.
kind of see if it actually makes a difference. So, and I wanted to say, like, I want to get this thing that you like attach to your wall and it lights up and you can do boxing and stuff with it. So
Oh,
I'm hoping that'll
cool.
maybe like help with the weight loss as well, because I want to build strength too, because I've lost all of that with all the anxiety. Like, I did a lot of sitting around for like 3 years, so now I've lost like all my muscle mass, I feel like. So yeah, no, it's helpful, and I'm very excited to try it. This was a really good Zoom call. I really appreciate all of this, Hayley, too,
Oh,
for
I'm so
setting these things
excited.
up. Like,
Colleen is
blessing in
the
disguise.
superstar.
Amazing.
She's shown up to everyone so far, and I love it. It's good consistency. It just helps, you to know you have that support, and to know you're not alone, and I learn something new every time I join on these calls, and I really love the sense of community that we're discovering. And that we have. And yeah, like I said, Alyssa, you're so knowledgeable. I have a list, and you're my friend. I can talk to you all the time, but like I do talk Alyssa's ear off a lot. And yeah, if you try these things too, like Alyssa is available. She has clients as well. So if you ever want to get in touch with her, like she's given me a couple readings the last couple of years, and she's been amazing. So thanks, Heather.
Coming on, Heather. I'm glad you were able to make it. Yeah, one thing, Kaylin, with the anxiety too, I think doing the face ice dunking in the morning, that would be something that would be really helpful for you too.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. Most of the anxiety came from when COVID came. And then I had a couple of other traumatic things happen as well at the same time. So then it's just I haven't been able to kick it. Like, me and my friend went to a hotel last night. We always have a girls' hotel night. We do spa night, watch